Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Road to the International. We're going to do a web series of interviews all about the international with players, casters, managers, personalities. And for today, we're going to focus on the West qualifier with Bruno. Hey
Yay,
Bruno,
that's me.
how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. Miss you? so,
Yeah.
first off, I'd like to ask how the planning is going for the West
Well,
qualifiers.
it's going super great. We have to remember that we had 2 weeks to prepare, which is really interesting, a really nice challenge. But I think the way we're going right now, we're going to be impressing quite a few people with the stuff we're preparing. I can't say much right now. I want to keep it a surprise for the first day, but it'll be really interesting.
Okay, you're going to release the groups pretty soon, right?
Yeah, it's tonight. It's May 4,
Okay.
20 CST. That is, 5 hours from this interview. But probably when you're hearing this interview, it either came out already or it's less than 5 hours. So
Yeah,
just
or
tune in.
or the interview
Yeah,
comes out after and everyone knows already. Oops.
yeah, exactly. So weird question, but yeah,
Yeah.
today the Good Studio stream on Twitch. It'll be awesome.
Okay, cool. So I noticed that you guys will be having a pub stomp
Mhm.
at the Good Studio itself. Have you received any interesting applications for people to go?
Well, it's really interesting, right? Because we live in a house and we're doing the pub stuff in the house. The house is quite big. But of course, like you can't cram 200 people in the house. And we were saying something like, okay, let's try to keep it civil. Let's bring about 25 people. It'll be less than having it on a bar. But over here, like if we had it on an actual pub, we will still have to be cast from the studio and people will have to go to the pub. So there will be a bigger disconnection. And if we make it this way, was more intimate. So it's like, okay, I think we can handle 25, even 30 people in the house and still be, as I said, civil. We've received about 100 and something people that want to come already.
That can go as
Uh,
well.
yeah,
Not,
that can go. And it's
wow.
like, okay. And surprisingly, people are messaging us from the UK, from Germany, from the Netherlands, saying, like, oh, yeah, I'll take a train, I'll take a plane and go to your
Wow.
house, which is really crazy because this is not a land finals. I mean, the teams are not here, it's just us having fun. But that
They're
goes
going
to
to
show
see
how
you.
awesome, yeah, how awesome it is.
They want to see you, Bruno. Like, yeah.
Well, there will be other opportunities for the ones that can come. I mean, it'll be really hard to pick the people who can come. But anyways, it'll be amazing. I can't wait.
Oh, cool. So, I saw on the Good Show that you're joking about people sending in pics. Have anyone have anyone sent a pic with their application?
I've received pictures. I've received Facebook profiles. I've received things that I
Hmm.
can't even tell on the interview.
Okay.
So yeah, my favorite one was a guy that actually wrote a really nice. Oh yeah, I'd really like to come to with you guys because like I have a couple of friends and we all want to meet you. Oh, by the way, we're all underage. That's not a problem, right? And like, yeah, that might be a problem actually.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
maybe in a few years, guys. Maybe in a few years.
okay. I'm gonna switch to show a picture of you that I
Okay.
took last year. Your face. Do you remember when we saw that frog hat?
Yeah, I remember the
Yeah,
frog
so
hat.
I'm gonna switch to that picture. Just gonna ask you.
Okay.
So people can see this picture now. We took it while we were at Seattle, right? We're still in Seattle. Yeah. So I just want to ask whether or not you have some troll plans for the people visiting. If they ask you if you're Ice Frog, will you be like, hmm? Or will you have like some moments where you're like walking around with like a frog hat or something?
Well, I don't want to ruin the surprise. I mean, to
Uh,
be honest, we'll probably be super busy during the actual event,
true.
just in the finals. But we do expect to, after the finals, if the time is okay, to actually hang out a little bit with the guys. And then maybe, who knows what I'll answer? Maybe I'll just tell them, go talk to Cybermat.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay. So, okay. So let's look a bit more. Um, into the teams that we'll be seeing. Gonna switch the display over to show the west and the east, but we'll be focusing on the west side for now. So there have been quite a lot of team switches that you have talked about in the last Good Show episode, but not all of the
Yeah.
switches happened at that time. So I was wondering if you had anything that you thought was interesting about the teams that had recent switches.
Well, it's pretty normal for teams to try to switch the roster when any big event comes. It's not only the international; we've seen it happening for DreamHack as well, and even for G or G1 League. But it's interesting to see what people consider a better team is. I will say that mm, some teams improve a lot. I've seen DD, for example, screaming with their new team with Govlak and Silent, and they're doing really really well. I'm surprised at them. And then for other teams, I haven't seen so much, so I can't tell much about how they're playing. But for example, teams like Empire that had three player changes, it's going to be really hard for them to find the same rhythm they had before, because when you change so many players, it's suddenly this guy is not as good at playing this hero that we always play, so we have to try something different. Or he's really good at split pushing strategies, but not as great as team fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of difference going on there. And I don't know. I kind of wish that the players or the teams themselves said like, okay, let's do some show matches. You know, in terms of, well, the qualifiers are around the corner now. They're announced, of course, and people know which teams are. But there are teams that, for example, I'm going to go there, but Kaipi, the team that didn't get to the qualifiers, people in paper, people are saying they were really strong. And TZ is a great player. I've seen him, and he's like, he seems really good. But when you're a team like that, I don't know. I hope that maybe in the future people will say, let's show ourselves that we have a new team and this new roster is good. But just having some show matches between themselves with other teams, and that way we would be like more secure or sure of each team's potential instead of just saying, well, in theory, in paper, Light of Heaven is really good, but we don't know, you know?
Yeah, totally agree. So, you also mentioned that yeah, it's a normal thing that happens. Do you think that is like if say example if Valve announced dates earlier or something that would be easier to eliminate something like that from happening? Um,
Well, moving the deadline, all it would do is actually move the team trading behind, which
mm-hmm.
is interesting if we still have tournaments going on, because then again, like now I'm talking about show matches because there were no official matches of any league whatsoever, pretty much at all
Mm-hmm.
this week. So the only alternative we have is actually playing show matches. But yeah, I mean, if the invites and the qualifiers were at least not the teams, but the fact that they were going to announce the invites and qualifiers was communicated earlier, probably there will be a chance that some teams will still have to play in other tournaments, and then with that in mind, they can decide, okay, we can change the roster, have a few days, a few weeks, a few months, whatever, to decide on how we're doing, and then with that, with a locked roster,
Mm-hmm.
um, actually help out make a decision. But if you do that, you have another problem, which is like you're artificially telling the teams
To
that they
lock
have
down.
to get out the roster, and maybe that's not the best roster that they can have. Maybe they can have someone better, and it's a disservice to the team to tell them like, oh no, sorry, I mean, this will be your team, and if this guy steals your girlfriend, well, you still have to play with him.
Oh yeah, that would suck. Yeah.
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah. But on the flip side, have you seen any cases where players are suddenly told last minute that they're out and they didn't even see it coming? Has that ever happened? Because I was just thinking about it and I thought that could happen. Like if you know you're only up for the qualifiers, you could actually sort of eliminate or potentially make other teams not as strong just by making someone think they're still with you. Like, have you seen that happen yet? Or
Uh, well, I'm not too familiar with all the teams and the way the teams work inside. I have a couple friends and they tell me stuff. That's how I keep informed
ah,
of what's going on. So I haven't seen any turmoil inside the teams. themselves. But I'm
Okay.
sure something that seeing that like that could happen, because it's all about the mind games. It's really sad for the player that's being used
Mm.
in that regard. And hopefully, it will never happen, or if it happens, no one ever knows because it's really, really, really sad.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think we should just get a team, get a good team. If your team is good, you will not need to change it. Like,
true.
um, I commend teams like AL, for example, that kept pretty much the same roster for more than a month now. Cupid, of course, from the beginning did that as well. It's really interesting. If you are comfortable with the way your team is playing, then you can say, okay, I can commit to this roster. No one here is particularly weak, so that we will have to consider changing him. And just by having all the time together, you probably will have better chances than if you would just keep switching players every week.
Okay, cool. About the changes as well, but also for the teams that didn't have changes, do you think that language issues, like communication, is that really important in a game of Dota? Or if you sort of have your own system going with pings and stuff, does it not matter that much?
It really depends. I mean, for basic communication, you can play Dota with basic knowledge of the like English, if that's the language everyone speaks, or even Russian, if there's just majority of players that speak Russian, because you don't need that much. Um, but it's really hard, especially when you have to take some kind of captaining role into the team, or you have to communicate something that you probably need um, a better grasp of the language you're talking, because it's easy to say, oh, bottom's missing, right? You can learn to say that in Russian. You can learn to say that in Chinese. You can say like, I farm the jungle now, and you can do that as well. But what if like, okay, the lanes are not working because apparently the guy that's here is LCSing our carry and we should consider rotating lane. But to do that, we need a gank from mid. And if you have to say that in a language that you don't control, suddenly it becomes more interesting. And you'll say, bottom hard, rotate, mid gank. And it doesn't communicate the same thing, you know.
True. And so do you think but it seems that it doesn't really affect the teams, right? The teams that are playing right now.
It's really hard to speculate because all of these players are good by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're good and they expect the other players to be as good as they are, and they normally are, they don't need as much communication. It's like, you know that if you're initiating with Shadow Demon, let's say, and you disrupt someone and there's a shrug, you don't have to tell him, hey, stand after the disruption is
Yeah,
over, because you know they will do it. So between high skilled players, and this goes for every kind of esport and sport, when you're playing with other high skilled people, you don't rely as much in communication as you do for lower skilled people.
true.
So that's an advantage, and that's why we can see teams that even don't communicate as well perform really well. But the difference between actually being able to talk and express yourself entirely and properly throughout the match makes a difference. It really does.
Okay. Talking about making a difference in terms of competitiveness, when I asked you, I think a week ago, for a quote about, teams and stuff, you said that boot camping is really crucial. So it seems that teams like EG, QPAD, and maybe Empire might be boot camping. So do you think they
Mhm.
necessarily would have an advantage? I mean, it's only a short time before the qualifier.
Well, I mean, just the fact that you have all five people in the same building, even if you just still need to rely on something like Skype to talk, because I mean, you will be wearing your
Hmm.
headset, and if you just talk against yourself, like, what? What'd you say? Sorry. So you probably still need something like Skype. The fact that you can just finish the game and say, okay, what went wrong? Sit 10 minutes, discuss, watch a replay together, say, okay, look, I mean, I fucked up here. I just didn't want to do that, and I meant to do something else. The fact that you can actually sit with everyone and watch the same screen and do that, it's huge. It might not seem that it's a huge difference in terms of when you're playing, because sometimes like if the team is very outspoken, yes, it will make a difference because it's really nice to actually be doing well and have some guy next to you yelling like, "Yeah, go! We're doing awesome! Come on, we can do it! Let's push!" It's obviously helpful, but some teams are really quiet, so it might not make a difference. But yeah, the fact that you can actually sit together before, after the match, during the draft, when you have a pause, it's actually huge. And I think the teams that are used to doing this will have an advantage. It's not a huge advantage. That doesn't mean that they will win every single game, but it's an advantage anyway. So good for them that they're able to boot camp to prepare better.
Okay. I read like online that Empire is considering Singapore as a location for boot camping. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
you know whether or not this is true, but if it is, do you think that it's a bit strange that they're picking Singapore since it's the West qualifier?
Um, I mean, if you go to Singapore, then you have very, very strong teams. I mean, you have three invited teams straight away in MEFC, Zenith, and Orange, which are all there in the zone, in that area. And then you have other teams that are also in the qualifiers that they may qualify, like, well, Myth Trust is in Thailand, First Departure is in Singapore. So you have a few other teams here as well. It's really interesting. I think that Empire knows their Western opponents so very, very well. So they might want to experiment trying with a different kind of Dota, maybe take some new strategies and practice against opponent that in the case that they qualify to the international, they will be facing. But anyways, I mean, this is super early to tell. I mean, this is optimistic of them, and I love them for that. They are saying they're planning ahead of the qualifiers. But to that news, when I heard the news, like, okay, first you have to qualify,
Yes.
and if you get into the top two, then well, let's just plan Singapore, plan China, or just go to Argentina. My father makes a very good barbecue, so they can boot camp there.
Okay. Sounds yummy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, talking about thinking ahead, too far ahead, and things like that. Obviously, there are 8 teams. Only two will be able to move on. What do you think is going to happen after the qualifier for these teams? Will they most likely have a roster shuffle? Um,
If history counts for something, at least two of the teams that will not qualify will disband. I don't know which one.
Statistics
I mean,
coming in.
yeah, I mean, this is just like the way it happens. The same reason people form rosters for a tournament like this, that they say, okay, this didn't work, let's just try something else. So I'm not saying that I know of any teams that's going to disband, and hopefully no team disband, but it happened in the past, and I would be surprised if it happened again. It's the natural progression of things. In their defense, or actually in the hopes that they don't disband, let's remember that DreamHack Summer is also around the corner. I think it's June 15th.
Hmm.
So that's another big competition with 16 invited teams. Well, I mean, not 16 invited, 16 slots. Some of them will be bring your own computer qualifiers. Some people will come from qualifiers like Team Dignitas. And some other teams will be invited directly. So maybe people will say, okay, we'll just keep this roster a little bit more, see what happens, and have a chance at DreamHack, which is also a really, really good tournament, and people should be eager to go there as well.
Cool. Okay, so just wondering if you have a top four and top two picks for West qualifier.
Wow. Um, it's kind of hard. As I said before, there are many teams that I've only seen screaming, or teams that I haven't seen in top form right now. I believe Mouse and EG are strong to be top four. I
Hmm.
believe DD is top four. Um, I think that they're playing really, really well right now. Even if I just saw scripts, then maybe they choke in an official match and I have to swallow my own words. But from what I've seen from them, they look really strong. And that fourth slot, it's kind of hard to say. I want to say Rockskis because they were the most consistent performers during the last months, but I haven't seen them the last week or so. I haven't seen any screens from them, so it's kind of an incognito. Empire as well with Light of Heaven, they are also normally a favorite, but then again, it's really hard to say. If you press me about it, I'll go with DD, Rockskis, Mouse, and EG. And for top two, I really can't say. Sorry,
Okay.
I just don't have a favorite.
Are you going to have to watch your back after not saying you've had red pandas? Isn't Sing Sing around? And the team?
No, actually, Sting and the guys are in the Cupid offices right now. They're playing against Navi and they just low 11-0. 11-0 in the first match against Navi. So it would be really, really funny if I say, like, yeah, Cupid has a chance. They just lost 11-0 with Navi. But it's fine. I think the guys are motivated by this, and they just know that they have to perform better. I still want them to win, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think that they have the potential to take it. But it's all about consistency with the Western qualifier teams. I don't think there's any team that's particularly stronger than any other team, but it's all about teams not being consistent enough. So no matter what the results we see right now are, by the point of the qualifiers, the team that's most consistent and not the most skilled, because they're all equally skilled, will win. Remember, well, I mean, the way the brackets work for each group stage, I mean, GSL groups means that you have to win 2 games before losing 2 games. So you're going to play up to 3 games in your group. If you
Mhm.
win 2 before losing 2, you're through. If you lose 2 before winning 2, you're out. So that means that it's all about consistency. You can fail 1 game, but you can't fail 2, and that's what will happen. I mean, again, the same for EL. Very strong team, sometimes a bit unreliable. IC Cap, kind of the dark horse here. I know that some people don't like them, but I've seen them perform really, really well in some scrims as well. It all comes to consistency. All comes to consistency.
Okay. I do have to ask though, for the team that might come up second in the West qualifier, do you think, okay, I know that you believe in the future, if they boot camp, if they train, it might be a different story. But if they played now against whoever would come second in the East qualifier, do you think they'd have a good chance or not quite like as much?
I I don't see any of the Western qualifier teams beating any of the top Eastern qualifiers team consistently, as
Mm,
they are right now. That is to say, Tongfu, Vici Gaming, Rattlesnake, even Myth Trust. I think all those teams, if they play 10 matches again, any of the Western teams qualifier, they'll probably win 7, 8. But then again, this is just like hypothetical. This is,
yeah.
they don't play against each other, so maybe we don't know. And again, uh, if you get 1 good game, then it's all about demoralizing your opponent. You can pull an upset. If you press me and I have
Cool.
to say yes or no, I think the East has a decent advantage over the West right now.
Cool. Okay, thank you so much for letting me ask you questions about the West qualifier. I know you're super busy, so I don't want to keep you for too long. Otherwise, people will kill me. Um, yeah, so do you have any shout outs that you'd like to share?
Well, sure. Shout out to everyone from the Good Studio that will be probably watching this interview later and saying, "What? What did you say there? What? Huh?" That's a bit
Oh
and then
no.
everyone involved in the qualifiers. I want to wish the teams success, not good luck, because luck is for losers and success is for winners. So I wish them all the best and tune in for the qualifiers because there will be something different.
Okay, great. So before you go, I'm just going to show everyone. You can follow Statsman Bruno on Twitter at Statsman Bruno over here, as you can see on the screen. Also, you can follow the Good Studio at the Good Studio, and Facebook. Oh, I don't know why that's showing up as really big, but yeah, on Facebook, and also their website, which apparently only Bruno uses from all of them. Uh,
Okay, nice.
yeah, okay. So thank you so much once again, and catch you later.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.